If you've read any of the Smith family novels, you may have wondered why in the world I would give a character the name John Smith. It may even seem a little simple-minded at first glance. Want to know the reason behind John's name? Stay tuned, and I'll tell you why. Hi, I'm Tanya E. Williams, author of historical women's fiction, including the Smith family trilogy, and today I'm going to fill you in on the inspiration for John Smith as a name and a character. But first, don't forget to hit subscribe, and you'll be notified each week when I release new videos covering topics that shape a story idea into a novel readers will enjoy. In earlier videos, we've already touched on how the characters in Becoming Mrs. Smith and Stealing Mr. Smith came to be. If you haven't seen those videos yet, I'll link them below for you. In A Man Called Smith, John Smith finally gets a story from his point of view. He is at the center of the Smith family books, and John is actually the reason behind the stories in all three novels. What may seem simple at first actually took great consideration. When I landed on the name John Smith, it was like a loose thread on a sweater. If I just tugged on it, the whole sweater would unravel. The same is true for John and his family's story. Just one thread unravels them all. Spoiler alert, John is that thread. John Smith is actually one of the most common names throughout history and is an English name derived from the occupation of a blacksmith. There were plenty of blacksmiths in medieval times, and thus Smith was a very popular last name, as it still is today. You might recognize the name from John Smith as in the explorer who hung out with Pocahontas. But did you know there are several other well-known John Smiths throughout history? Many of them were politicians in several different countries. But there were a few sports figures, writers, and even an actor who was famous for his portrayal of the ideal cowboy in some beloved westerns. John Smith is even used as a placeholder in North America and the United Kingdom as a term for the average man. This is where my fictional John Smith comes into play. If you've read the novel, you know John is a complex man in a very difficult situation. His past haunts him. He grieves for his first love. The man's family is literally falling apart at the seams. His wife is unkind and manipulative, and that's sugarcoating it. She has demons friends, many, many demons. So here we have a name that essentially means the average man, but this average man happens to be in the middle of an emotional tornado. That is the literary juxtaposition that captured my attention. I went forth, deciding the irony of both things was simply too good not to use. When I crafted John's story, I leaned into that complexity by having him appear to those who knew him on the surface level to be a simple man. He worked hard for a living. He was neighborly and helpful. To anyone looking in from the outside, John was a good man living a regular life. In reality, though, John is a tortured man who makes many mistakes. He often chooses to avoid challenging situations instead of facing them head on. He believes he is keeping the peace and doing what is right, but his inaction costs those he loves harm. In the end, I wanted readers to take away the awareness that even the average man, the John Smiths of the world, may be living, unbeknownst to us, complicated life experiences. No one's life is beyond challenges after all. My hope is that readers will take this with them and judge others as well as themselves a little less harshly going forward. Because until we've walked a mile in someone else's shoes, it's difficult to understand what another person is dealing with. Now, A Man Called Smith is an emotional story. I highly recommend having the box of tissues handy when you sit down to read. It will break your heart at times, but by the end of the story, I hope you will find your heart has been expanded and healed too. What's that adage of the cracks being where the light gets in? That is A Man Called Smith in a nutshell. Oh, and on a personal note, my grandfather's name was John Smith. If you've read A Man Called Smith, let me know in the comments if this insight helped you understand John and his namesake in a new light. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe so YouTube knows this content was helpful. Thanks for watching, and happy reading!